Jaxon Smith-Njigba, he is going to be expected to be worth right around that $24 million mark. Looks like he's just going to be south of that. 23.9 is what Over the Cap is saying. Love that. That is an effing steal for that type of player, especially when you know you're probably going to be just under doubling it, essentially, when he ends up getting his full-time contract, once he ends up getting that big extension. Now, I do believe the Seahawks are going to take care of Devin Witherspoon second in the race between him and JSN, and that's not necessarily a knock against Devin Witherspoon. It's just, I think that they understand how important JSN is to that offense and how much he makes that offense go. Not saying that Devin Witherspoon is not important to the defense. That would just be stupid, and I would never say that. It just feels like JSN and the Seahawks are going to hurry to get that deal done. Now, would it shock me if he got the deal done and Devin Witherspoon's deal is like a week, 2 weeks down the line? Maybe.
Jaxon Smith-Njigba's rise didn't follow the script most people expected. When he entered the league, the conversation around him was measured. He was respected for his technical ability, his college production, and his reliability, but he wasn't framed as an instant game changer. There were louder prospects, faster receivers, and players with more explosive profiles who drew early attention. So the expectation was simple: steady growth. Early usage reflected that. His role in the offense felt structured and limited, built around shorter routes and controlled opportunities. He was contributing, but not dominating. It looked like the kind of progression teams often prefer: gradual, disciplined, and patient. Nothing about those early moments suggested a sudden takeover was coming. But beneath that surface, something was building.
In other news, the Seahawks have exercised the fifth-year options for JSN and Devon Witherspoon, arguably our best players on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side. Obviously, JSN is coming off that reigning Offensive Player of the Year season, and Devon Witherspoon is known league-wide as a top 3, top 5 cornerback. I like to think he's top 1, but just my opinion. It's worth noting that just because we exercise this fifth-year option, we are still going to be negotiating contract extensions with these guys, hopefully in the 4-year range. So I know John Schneider is talking to both of them and working on that deal right now. The amounts these guys are going to be getting paid on their fifth-year options are $23.8 million for JSN and $21.1 million for Devon Witherspoon. Both can still sign an extension, and both are in line for huge deals with the Seahawks at latest by the end of next season.
As the season progressed, the nature of his involvement began to shift. The targets weren't just increasing, they were becoming more meaningful. Third downs, tight windows, high-pressure situations, the ball started going his way when it mattered most. That's usually the first real signal, not volume, but trust. And trust, once established, tends to accelerate everything. Quarterbacks began to lean on him more consistently. Coaches expanded his role, defenses started adjusting coverage in subtle ways, yet the production didn't slow down. Instead, it became more efficient, more controlled, and more impactful. What made this rise different was how quietly it happened.
Well, let's get to the NFL for a sec, because we have Jeremy Fowler here. The Seahawks picked up the fifth-year option on wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba, expected to be worth close to $24 million. Also opens the door for an extension with the 24-year-old. He said he thinks he should be the NFL's top-paid receiver after that breakout season, named the league's Offensive Player of the Year. Same division, different situation. Niners not exercising the $10 million option bonus on their star left tackle Trent Williams, according to Shefty. Despite ongoing talks, they have not found common ground on a new deal. Williams, named to his 12th Pro Bowl, landed on the All-Pro team for the 5th time in his career. As the aforementioned Jeremy Fowler is with us, but we always know with Trent Williams, it's really touch and go in terms of his health. He's 37 years old. So walk us through this particular situation, what it means for him and the Niners.
So the 49ers now have a $47 million cap hit, Hannah, on Trent Williams, which is a huge number for a non-quarterback. It's sort of untenable. So both sides need to try to work out a new contract. Maybe it's in the form of an extension.
There wasn't a single viral moment that defined it, no one play that forced the league to react overnight. Instead, it was a steady accumulation of performances that, over time, became impossible to ignore. By the time the broader conversation caught up, the shift had already occurred. He wasn't emerging anymore. He had already taken control of his role within the offense, and that's what makes this kind of rise so significant. It doesn't rely on hype or narrative. It's built on execution, repetition, and trust, the kind of foundation that tends to last much longer than a typical breakout. Every breakout season has a turning point, but for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, it wasn't a single game or highlight that defined his leap. It was consistency, the kind that builds quietly until it reshapes how a player is viewed entirely.
That they understand how important JSN is to that offense and how much he makes that offense go. Not saying that Devin Witherspoon is not important to the defense. That would just be stupid, and I would never say that. It just feels like JSN and the Seahawks are going to hurry to get that deal done. Now, would it shock me if he got the deal done and Devin Witherspoon's deal is like a week, 2 weeks down the line, maybe even less? No, not at all. So make sure you're on the lookout and make sure that you are expecting these to kind of come through. Love this move by John Schneider. It's an act of good faith. Hey, letting the players know, we got you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that you both stay here in Seattle for the long term. We're going to be the first team to get you your 5th-year option, because none of the other 5th-year options, to my understanding, have been doled out for any of these other players that are in the same draft. You got 2 guys who are all pros. Make sure that they're locked up. Make sure that they're taken care of. And it gives you an ample amount of time to go through and get that long-term extension.
From early in the season, the signs were there. His involvement wasn't just increasing, it was becoming more intentional. Targets were coming in situations that demanded precision, third downs, tight coverage, and moments where timing had to be exact. And more often than not, he delivered. That consistency began to compound. Week after week, his numbers grew: receptions, yardage, and overall impact. But what separated this season from a typical statistical breakout was efficiency. These weren't empty catches or inflated numbers from low-pressure situations. His production directly influenced drives, extended possessions, and shifted momentum within games. That's where recognition starts to follow. Defenses began to adjust, coverage schemes shifted, more attention was directed his way, yet the results stayed the same. He continued to find space, convert key plays, and maintain a level of reliability that made him difficult to contain over the course of an entire game. And then came the defining stretch. Late in the season, when games carried more weight, his role became even more pronounced. Critical catches, late game conversions, and moments where the outcome depended on execution. These were the situations where he consistently showed up, not occasionally, but repeatedly. That's what transforms a strong season into a defining one.
The 49ers now have a $47 million cap hit, Hannah, on Trent Williams, which is a huge number for a non-quarterback. It's sort of untenable, so both sides need to try to work out a new contract. Maybe it's in the form of an extension or a renegotiation at some point, but it's tricky, Hannah, because he's 37 years old. He's coming off a really strong season, though. He's a Hall of Famer and still playing at that level, so he needs a contract commensurate with his skill set. They've negotiated a little bit. I'm told the player has had some frustrations in the past, including this offseason, about how they just haven't been able to reach deals quickly and smoothly for a player who's obviously a star. So they're going to keep at it. Hopefully before the draft they can find some common ground. Right now he's due $33 million in cash this year, so
wow.
He's pretty much good either way.
Yeah, such an important position. Again, the availability is really key there. Let's go to the Seahawks and some young guys, all right? So you're exercising a 5th-year option for Devin Witherspoon and JSN.
Winning Offensive Player of the Year reflected that shift. It wasn't just about leading in numbers or having standout performances. It was about influence, about being the player who changes how opponents prepare and how games unfold. By the end of the season, the conversation had completely changed. There was no longer any uncertainty about his role or his trajectory. He wasn't a developing piece or a promising option within the offense. He had become one of the central forces shaping it. And once a player reaches that point, the expectations and the opportunities only continue to grow. What makes Jaxon Smith-Njigba stand out isn't something that immediately shows up on highlight reels. At first glance, he doesn't rely on the kind of traits that typically define dominant receivers. He isn't the fastest player on the field, and his game isn't built around pure physical dominance or explosive athleticism. yet defenders continue to struggle against him. The difference lies in how he approaches the position. His route running is built on precision and control. Every movement has purpose: how he releases off the line, how he adjusts speed within a route, and how he positions his body to create separation at exactly the right moment. It's not about creating obvious space, it's about creating just enough at exactly the right time. That subtlety makes him difficult to defend. Defensive backs often rely on anticipation. They try to read patterns, predict movements, and react early. But Smith-Njigba disrupts that rhythm. His timing doesn't follow predictable patterns, and his adjustments within routes force defenders to hesitate, even briefly. And in the NFL, even a small hesitation can be enough. Then there's his awareness. He reads defenses both before and during the play. He understands where coverage is likely to shift and adjusts accordingly. That awareness allows him to consistently find openings, even when they're minimal. It also creates a level of synchronization with his quarterback that speeds up decision-making. The ball comes out faster, the play develops more smoothly. Over time, that builds trust, and trust is what elevates a receiver from being an option to being a priority. When a quarterback knows exactly where a receiver will be and that the receiver will execute with precision, the entire offense benefits. What makes this even more impactful is sustainability. Players who rely heavily on athleticism often face limitations as conditions change, whether through injuries, defensive adjustments, or natural physical decline. But a game built on technique, awareness, and timing tends to hold up longer. That's what makes Smith-Njigba's rise feel different. It's not built on a single advantage. It's built on a combination of skills that are difficult to replicate and even harder to fully neutralize.
Is not important to the defense, that would just be stupid, and I would never say that. It just feels like JSN and the Seahawks are going to hurry to get that deal done. Now, would it shock me if he got the deal done and Devin Witherspoon's deal is like a week, 2 weeks down the line, maybe even less? No, not at all. So make sure you're on the lookout and make sure that you are expecting these to kind of come through. Love this move by John Schneider. It's an act of good faith. Hey, letting the players know, we got you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure that you both stay here in Seattle for the long term. We're going to be the first team to get you your fifth-year option, because none of the other fifth-year options, to my understanding, have been doled out for any of these other players that are in the same draft. You got two guys who are all pros. Make sure that they're locked up. Make sure that they're taken care of. And it gives you an ample amount of time to go through and get that long-term extension.
In the NFL, contracts often serve as statements. They reflect how a team views not just a player's current performance, but their role in shaping the future. And when the Seahawks committed to Jaxon Smith-Njigba with a major extension, the message extended far beyond retention. It signaled a shift in direction. For much of the team's recent history, the offensive identity has been distributed. Multiple options, shared responsibilities, and a system that didn't rely too heavily on a single focal point. But this decision suggests a move towards something more centralized, building around a player who can influence multiple aspects of the offense. That changes how everything is structured. Play calling begins to adapt, personnel decisions start aligning with that direction, the offense becomes more intentional in how it creates opportunities for its primary playmaker. It's no longer just about balance, it's about optimization. And with that comes expectation. A contract of this scale elevates the standard. Consistency becomes the baseline, not the goal. Every performance is evaluated through a different lens because the role itself has expanded. The player is no longer just contributing within the system, they are helping define it. But the decision isn't based solely on what has already happened. It's built on projection. The Seahawks are betting on sustainability.
Trent McDuffie just got traded from the Kansas City Chiefs over to our rivals in Los Angeles. Those Rams, those ugly, sucky Rams. And Trent McDuffie is getting $31 million per year. So that is the number we are going to be on the lookout for Devon Witherspoon. We don't know exactly when these contracts are going to get done. The Seahawks do have until the end of next season to get these done. But of course, these players are going to want to get these deals done a lot quicker in case they get injured, in case of whatever. I hope it doesn't lead to a holdout situation for either one of them. But again, hopefully we can get these deals done as soon as possible, because the sooner these deals get done, the cheaper they will be. If we wait, then Christian Gonzalez is going to get extended. Maybe George Pickens will get extended for the max. And then that's just going to drive up the costs of JSN and Devon Witherspoon. So let's get those deals done as soon as possible. Let's step in now to the 12's verdict, but we want to hear from you guys down in the comment sections.
On the idea that Jaxon Smith-Njigba's style of play, grounded in precision, awareness, and timing, will remain effective over time. That it isn't dependent on peak physical traits that can fluctuate, but on skills that tend to endure. That kind of projection carries risk, but it also offers stability. Because if that evaluation proves accurate, the team isn't just securing a high-performing receiver, they're establishing a long-term foundation for how their offense will operate. A player who can adapt, maintain consistency, and continue influencing games as conditions evolve. And in that context, the contract becomes more than a financial decision. It becomes a defining moment, a point where a franchise chooses a direction and commits to building around it. What makes Jaxon Smith-Njigba's rise even more compelling is how dramatically his role has evolved in such a short time. Early in his career, he operated within the system. He was part of the rotation, contributing where needed, but not defining the offense. The structure existed independently of him. That is no longer the case. Now, the offense increasingly runs through him. His presence dictates spacing, timing, and even defensive alignment. Opponents are no longer preparing for him as one option among many. They are preparing for him as the primary problem to solve.
This is by design, Hannah. Seattle was not active in free agencies because they want to pay those young stars. Jaxon Smith-Njigba now is locked into about $24 million in 2027. Devon Witherspoon around $21 million in 2027. So they're under contract for 2 years regardless, but they want to get extensions done with these guys, get ahead of it a little bit because the money's going to be massive. Eventually, they're probably going to be paying these two players $75 to $80 million a year on new deals on average. That's just what the market bears. They're worth it, so they want to take care of those guys. They lost a lot of key players in free agency, re-signed a few. They're trying to be judicious as to how they do it. They're going to start with those two guys, keep them long-term eventually, and then build around them.
Yeah, right now, second shortest odds behind the Rams to win the Super Bowl. We appreciate it. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Shift is significant. It changes how plays are designed. It changes how quarterbacks read the field. And it changes how teammates operate within the system, because roles start adjusting around a central figure. His routes open up opportunities for others, and his consistency stabilizes the entire passing game. This is the difference between a contributor and a cornerstone. He didn't just improve his performance, he changed his function within the team. And once a player reaches that level, their impact extends beyond individual production. It begins shaping the identity of the entire offense. Jaxon Smith-Njigba's emergence reflects something larger than one player's success. It points toward a shift in how elite wide receivers are defined and valued across the league. His game is built around precision, awareness, and control. And that matters, because it challenges the traditional idea that dominance at the position requires speed or size above everything else. Instead, it highlights how technical mastery and decision-making can be just as impactful, if not more sustainable over time. For the Seahawks, this opens a clear path forward. An offense built around consistency, efficiency, and timing can become more adaptable against different defensive schemes. It also creates long-term stability, because the system is not dependent on volatile factors. Across the league, it raises a bigger question. Are teams starting to prioritize receivers who can control the game in subtle ways, rather than just explosive ones who create occasional highlights? If that trend continues, Smith-Njigba won't just be seen as a breakout star. He may be viewed as part of a new blueprint, one that redefines what it means to be a true #1 receiver in today's NFL.